Okay, folks, game week 221. So much to get into here. So let me race through it. First, let's look at the win percentages for this game week. Just a few kind of interesting notes. So Champion Europe, again, it's really interesting to me just how many card payouts they're doing. 156. I mean, it's the second highest here by a wide margin. Only Global All-Stars more. It seems like maybe they're really trying to funnel people into there. And I think what we're seeing is just, it's such a competitive division that, and you need such high scores that they're basically pumping in cards into that just so that they can see some more reasonable or attainable scores, I guess. And so given that it's a Champions League week, as well as Europa, there's no surprise that this one, is going to be one of the most competitive, of course, and also the most card giveaways. Americas, there's only 2 MLS games. There are some Mexico, Argentina, Brazilian League matches as well. So, but I think with the reduction, with just the few MLS, you might find a little bit of value there to get in a lineup. And I don't know, perhaps I kind of predicting this one will end up more in like the 270, 260 point range. So you might actually be able to get away with winning a card here with maybe a slightly less optimal lineup. So interested in that one. Weekly, they've really moved off of weekly. I feel like in August or so, seemed to be a bit of promotion around it. Just they were pumping in a lot of cards, a lot of prizes. Now we're seeing nowhere near as much, just a couple during the midweeks, and then maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 during the weekends. And that just, to me, makes it very hard to play in a lot of those. Here, I mean, for you to be one of the top 8 or top 6, you really have to have an absolute stacked lineup. It's all Europa League for this one. So certainly if you have it, you can roll the dice. But down in limited, just the other one, what's kind of interesting. So we see Challenger or Champion Europe have the best payout. But then down in limited, it's the opposite. So actually Challenger Europe, there's not as many people entering it just at the moment. And they have a pretty significant amount of prizes of cards versus some of the others here. So that there may be an opportunity there. If you can squeeze in a lineup for that one, I'd aim for that. Otherwise, nothing else looks too dramatic. Asia is quite small. There's only just, I believe it's 8, the Champions League over there is really the key match. So not a lot going on, and thus not a lot of cards being paid out. So there you go. So let's look at some of the player picks. First, how I did over the weekend. So remember last week I was kind of highlighting just some MLS players that I thought you actually could pick up on the cheap, that they were really starting to drop in price as people are trying to kind of back out of that league. But that if you did it now, you might not get the absolute rock bottom price, but you get some really fantastic players that are going to play really well through this upcoming playoff window. So these 3 didn't play this weekend due to buys for their team. So I kind of expected that. It's more of a hold for a couple weeks and see how they do. So I'm definitely still kind of backing that. These guys did as well. Obviously, it's a bit disappointing if Przybyłko didn't do so well, but as a forward, he's someone you want to hang on to, and they advanced. Philadelphia advanced, so they'll keep playing next weekend and maybe beyond. So Jack Elliott did well, and then I just wanted to show some of the guys that I made that I put forward last time. Now, of course, that was all based on national team exposure and things like that, but recognizing that, no, they also have value when they come back to their clubs. And I'd imagine, some of these guys have, they probably were on a bit of a time restriction, given that they maybe had traveled overseas and whatnot. So I wouldn't freak out too much about some of these scores, but just, there are some nice ones here, and it shows that really they can they can offer value in a longer term. So I think I'm pleased with where I went with that. Okay, so looking ahead into who I'm recommending for this one. Now, this one's going to sound a bit strange. I'm trying to kind of find opportunities that maybe others are not seeing. And one of which is Shakhtar Donetsk. Yeah. So they play in the Ukrainian Premier League. Now, that's not a league that So Rare covers. So, I mean, look at this. They've been absolutely fantastic. 12 wins, 2 draws, a loss. 40-8 is their goals for and against. I believe they're undefeated in their last 12. Really, really strong side. Obviously, finishing top 2 qualifies them for Champions League next year. Having said all that, none of these games matter. None of these games count from a so rare point of view, which is really unfortunate. It makes it very difficult to invest in these cards. But the reason I'm highlighting them is because they are in Champions League. They're not doing well. They've got 2 matches remaining. And so they're not going to advance. But they play this midweek and they play against Inter. They had a 0-0 draw a couple weeks ago. And then they play Sheriff, which should be a competitive match, but something they should at least be able to play better in. So I'm seeing sort of 2 matches that they can compete and have a sort of honorable end to their Champions League run. And more specifically is just kind of looking at just how depressed their values are. So when we look at these cards, these are some really that's my team. Some really rock solid players. We have young players. Like if we go over to transfer market value, the amount of players that are kind of young, still entering their prime, and worth a significant amount of money here. 22 million, another 22 for Manor Solomon. We'll see him in a sec. Tete 22, Pedrino 18.7. These are really solid values, and they're young. They're 21, 23, 24, things like that. Macon as well, 7.7. He's rising. There's just a lot of value with this club. And, don't forget we have a transfer window coming up. And so is it possible that 1 or 2 of these guys get plucked and moved on to a bigger side? I think that's a real possibility. And if we look at it from the point of view of where they're sitting, like if we look at Matvienko, who also plays for the Ukrainian national team, so he's very steady in that regard. But I mean, these scores are fantastic. You take them all the time, and I mean, look at this. He really rarely has a bad game, like 1 out of every 10 or something, and it's just so steady. I used to own him, and then I sold him, but and again, it doesn't mean you're not going to be able to play him through the Ukrainian league, but you get a couple more games left in Champions League over the next few weeks, some national team coming up. And again, if there's maybe some movement, if we look at his price graph, maybe starting to rise slightly on the rare side. And then I think limited, kind of rose and then is starting to come down now. But I mean, we look at these numbers here, and that's pretty cheap for a young sort of star player, if you will. You won't be able to find value like this, I believe. And if we keep going, Tete, maybe not the best numbers, but again, just like absolutely dirt cheap. His rare price has been falling. His limited is even less, I believe. Maybe a little flat and then falling a little. But again, this isn't big money. And if, and maybe, not playing as much or not doing as well, but somebody you could invest in. Again, the transfer market value of him at, 22 million or so. He should be in demand. Pedrino, even cheaper here in kind of both areas, totally affordable. Again, look at this limited, really just crashing down and really, really cheap. I think rare is maybe a little more flat. Okay, rising a little bit. So we look at that, and then he's been, not bad. I mean, you probably don't love these scores, but again, maybe somebody that I think you could play over the next 2 Champions League midweeks, and then maybe hold on for a transfer. Macon is actually quite steady. These are nice numbers. I think you'd take that. And again, just even cheaper, like $11 here. 0.04. They seem to, in the rare price, pretty much all the cards I just showed, all seem to kind of hover around this $150, $160. Again, I just think that there's an investment here. That's a possibility. Manor Solomon is my last one, and he actually is rumored to be moving. So his price is kind of a little higher than the others, but you can see the limited is at its lowest in at least a little while. And let's see where rare is at. I'd say you'd call that probably fairly flat. And I mean, there's some rumors here for, let's see, where is it? Newcastle. Over the summer, I think it was Arsenal were in the running to sign him, and then it didn't come together. But United transfer as Magpies battle Spurs and Villa for international. So, this is all about Solomon, and you have potentially 3 Premier League clubs try to sign him. So, if he moves this winter, that could be a great bonus for you. He's the one that I'm most interested in. Well, I do own one of his cards, and I'd like to see if maybe I can get another, because I do think that maybe there's a window to grab him. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a different take, I suppose. You're probably thinking, wow, you're asking me to go and invest in some players that will only play this game week, and then in 2 more weeks on December 7th. But again, I think there's an opportunity sometimes when you just see kind of prices crashing, and you might be able to get these players at pretty much their absolute lowest. These are young 20-year-olds that are worth a lot in the transfer market kind of rankings. And if you're trying to find a balance of getting cards that, yeah, you can play once or twice over the next few weeks, but then also are a bit of a long-term investment, this is the club I'm looking at. So there you go. I hope that helps. We will chat again soon. Best of luck, everyone.